Miss Charlotte Pattison had her first ever tarot reading this spring in D.C. at the private home of a seer who goes by the name Mrs. Natalie. The reading was held in a curtained-off section of Mrs. Natalie's living room in Chevy Chase. Mrs. Natalie informed Charlotte that she would soon begin a 2 to 4 year experience where she would work on an important creative project with a small group of people, 4 people who would be of great significance to her project. She is happy to share Mrs. Natalie's contact details.
That did happen, and it was really spooky. But a lot of other stuff she said was less spooky. Okay, I'm going to read a short story. It's called The Loft Party. Okay. At Paris Club, the boys have been waiting in line for 20 minutes already. It's bitter cold. When the girls get out of the cab, there is embracing and teasing and kissing. But the only person who hugs Rachel is a beautiful boy in her Victorian literature class. Before she knew he had a boyfriend, she used to imagine they'd get coffee after class and fall in love over a shared appreciation of Thackeray. But instead, they had become friends in the casual way you are friendly with people you see a lot in college, but don't really know. In this group, he too seemed a little out of place. "I get the feeling this night could be a total shit show," he said, rubbing her arms to warm her up. "Girl, you're so chilly." She had worn only a light pea coat, but with 4 vodka tonics to warm her, she felt nothing. A small vanguard of the girls walked straight to the head of the line. They asked if Joe was working tonight. Joe was a bouncer who'd once sold them discount Coke in exchange for their phone numbers. "Hey, you can't do that. We've been waiting for 40 minutes, a guy in a parka called out from the line. But girls like that could, and they did, and they always would for as long as they can. Joe the bouncer came out of the door and gave Hannah Rosen a lingering kiss on the cheek. He had a rough, pockmarked face and wet eyes. He counted off the members of the group and led them personally to the front of the line. "You're the best," Hannah said, trying to satisfy him with just a side hug and getting pulled into a tighter embrace so he could feel her tiny body. Inside Paris Club, a red light deepens and saturates everything, the music, the drunkenness, the meaning of casual glances. It would be nice to meet a handsome stranger in this sultry light, where everyone looks like a darkroom negative of their real self. Rachel stood at the bar for 20 minutes trying to get the cute bartender's attention with patience and a meek smile, but it is only when Vicky walks up to join her and leans her full cleavage across the bar that they get served. She orders the strongest thing she can think of with the lowest calorie count and listens to Vicky's latest complaint about her on-again, off-again boyfriend who isn't here tonight because he's studying for the LSAT. Practically shouting over the drum and bass, she explains, "I mean, it's nice that he has so much ambition, but sometimes I feel like it's an excuse to be boring." By the time Rachel hears about the loft party, it is already being spoken of as an eventuality. Who knew about it first? Maybe it was Hannah Rosen because this is her birthday, her party. Maybe it was Vicky who's been eye-fucking the cute bartender for 2 hours. Maybe he told her about it. Maybe it was on social media, mentioned on some cool account that Rachel's never heard of. Whoever knew about it first, within a few short minutes, the loft party is collective knowledge. It's in a building in the old meatpacking district, very exclusive. You'll need a password to get in. Suddenly, all anyone wants to know is, are you going to the loft party? And the only right answer is, yes, of course, aren't you? The people she recognizes are scattered all over Paris Club. In one corner, 2 people are making out, and in another, a couple is arguing with quick, violent hand gestures. 3 girls in her sorority dance seductively with a group of older men in suits who've been buying them drinks all night, but haven't yet realized they won't be taking the girls home. Vicky's gaze is vodka-brined. She says, "We're leaving for the loft party in 20 minutes. You better come, bitch." And she tries to wink, but the vodka thumbs down her eyelid too long, and for one horrible moment, half of her face is asleep. They pile in, but they've miscounted the number of people who can fit in 2 cabs. Somehow the cute bartender has changed clothes and is now holding Vicky's hand. They are laughing like they've known each other forever. They push Rachel into the cab with the others and promise they'll see her there, but from the way they look at each other, she's not sure they'll make it to the loft party. In the cab are some of her sorority sisters. They're not really friends, but the liquor helps. She laughs anytime anyone laughs, and this feels like closeness. Packed in like 4 cold sardines in the back seat, she doesn't know if Evan Thomas thinks he is rubbing her leg or his own. His fogged-out eyes stare straight ahead, and he doesn't seem to notice when she gently pushes his hand off her thigh. Hannah Rosen reads the address off her phone, and the cab takes them to an empty brick warehouse from the last century. It lies just 3 blocks away from an area of known gentrification and 2 blocks from the lake. Nearby, the L train rattles overhead, and no light comes from the surrounding buildings. There is broken glass and trash on the sidewalk. Neon sprays of graffiti rise along the building sides like a tide mark to the exact height of man. In a year, this block will have a farm-to-table restaurant. A local developer will take over these buildings, adding shiny gyms and rooftop bars. People will complain that the city is leeching authenticity, but not yet. The door to the building is coming off its hinges. There are wet newspapers slumped in the lobby, and the air smells a little like pee. Evan Thomas says, "This is so legit, man," to no man in particular, and they all climb the stairs to the 5th floor and the dim pound of music. A man with a lip piercing answers their 3 solemn knocks. He opens the door on a chain and asks them to say the password. Hannah Rosen steps forward for the group. She is brassy with drink and teeters on her high heels like a person standing on ice. The password is fabulous. It will cost them $15 for entry, even the girls. Hannah Rosen balks at this injustice, but she opens her Louis Vuitton and hands the guy a crisp 50. "It's okay," she tells the group. "Just buy me a drink inside." There's so much dry ice at the loft party that at first it's hard to see. They feel their way across the first room toward the music, and every few feet or so, another shoulder or flailing arm emerges from the smoke. There is an immediate need for more booze and a concern for where to locate it. The bar is a surly green-haired guy standing next to a stack of Solo cups and plastic bottles of liquor and soda. They lay the rest of their cash on the table and come away with flat, foul-tasting whiskey coats. "No diet?" is heard incredulously as they move back into the smoky main room. The music is better at the loft party. There are songs with words everyone knows. There is a popular dance number where they can sing out, "Forever young, I want to be forever young." You're welcome. When the developers arrive, this will become the living room with high ceilings and great city views, but right now a humming generator powers the strobe lights that streak the smoke. The windows are covered with taped-together pieces of cardboard. Looking around at the other guests, Rachel knows she is never further than 5 feet from hard drugs. Surrounded by smoke and hip strangers, the college kids herd together. There is some effort to dance, some testing hands brush against hips, some hair flips and lingering glances are intentional. But Evan Thomas is a flavor that every one of her friends has tried. With Evan, you are never seduced, you are only ever nearby. When he tries to draw her close to his face, she pretends she needs a drink and moves away through the smoke. The bathroom line contains a few familiar faces, so she stands with them. A girl she knows on a nod and smile basis is talking to her friend about how she's not spoiled. "My parents want me to be responsible with money. I mean, it's important to them." "Right, mine too. I mean, I only get a new handbag every 3 years, and it's like this big deal every time." Rachel knows the current bag is Gucci. She saw it dropped in a puddle outside the cab and brushed off on the sleeve of a $900 Montclair coat. It turns out no one is actually here to use the bathroom. The girls pull her in with them, and they do lines off a mirrored tray that seems to have been placed there just for that purpose. There is a water bucket next to the toilet for flushing and a sign above it that reads, "Use sparingly, ladies." With her phone battery at 15%, she knows she should leave the loft party, but the thought of a $40 cab back to campus makes her stay. She should at least find one other person to share. If Hannah Rosen is leaving, then she'll just put the fare on her dad's credit card without blinking. But when Rachel comes out of the bathroom and the other girls disappear, she finds herself coughing on a flume of fog and staggering towards one of the dark back rooms where people have stashed their bags and coats. She leans against a wall near a window. Still coughing, she pries off the corner of the cardboard and lifts the window to let in a sharp burst of winter air. The hairs on her arms stand alert and twinkle slightly in the pale light. It's as if she's never looked at them before, and a hand falls gently on her back. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to startle you. You didn't hear me. I asked if you were okay." A handsome man with short, bleached hair and a loose-fitting shirt stands back a few steps and waits for her reaction. "I'm fine, thank you. I just needed some air." "Okay, well, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to startle you." She thinks then that he'll go, and suddenly she wishes he wouldn't. It's not something she would normally do, but she reaches out and offers him her hand. His hand is cold, very cold, but so is hers. She knows that she should close the window. "I'm Rachel." The music seems faded now, very background. She brushes a lock of hair behind her ear and notices that she is doing it, and smiling at the man with white teeth who smiles back. Is this your first time at the party? Can you tell? It's just, you're new. Same crowd every time? You could say that the crowd never changes. Still smiling at him, she shivers and reaches out to close the window and pull the cardboard back in place, but when she feels for the window, it isn't there. She must have moved away from it without noticing. Your feet must be so tired. Are your feet tired? A little, I guess. I don't know. These shoes are easier to walk in than they look. He laughs, and then he waits. He's still standing about 5 feet away from her, respectful of her space. After they shook, he replaced his hands in his pockets. His eyes are a faint gray and very lucid. He doesn't look drunk to her, and she wonders how she looks to him. I mean, do you think you can still dance? This is flirting. This is a restoration of a known dynamic. She feels the blood rush pleasantly into her face, and his smile widens. She admires his friendly open mouth and the cool eyes that float above it. What did he say his name was? I can still dance. He holds out his hand and leads her toward a closed door. She must have closed it behind her when she had the coughing fit. Behind the door, they are playing an old 90s banger. When he pushes it open, the music roars into her skull. Wow, she yells into his ear, this is such a throwback song. And they are dancing. And this is fun dancing. Not using your body like a dog humps a sofa cushion, dancing. He twirled her, he dipped her. They threw out the Macarena, the Running Man, and a rough approximation of the twist. Around them, other people danced in the smoke, girls in belly shirts, girls in leotards, girls in 50s pinup dresses, men in suits and men with their shirts off, and men in crisp white t-shirts tucked into blue jeans, and hair slicked back or teased up or grown out in afros and long careening braids. And the music shifted too, from old crooner songs her parents loved to 70s disco anthems and the great power ballads of the 80s hair bands. Oh wait, is this a costume party? But he twirled her away. It seemed to be another room altogether. She could see none of the people she came with, but she didn't think about that. With all the dancing, her heartbeat was very loud, almost urgent in her chest, and he was smiling at her. She wondered how old he was as his bright face passed in and out of the plumes of smoke. In some flashes, he looked no older than she did, and then she would catch a little strain around the eyes, a thinning of the skin at his temples where his laugh stretched out his face, and she thought older, much older. She imagined bringing him as her date to a formal. She imagined saying, "This is my boyfriend. We met at the loft party." She didn't know how long she'd been dancing, but she felt like she was sobering up now, and the feeling taking over her body was a less complicated joy. Now a slow song came on, and he drew her toward him with a look of exaggerated tenderness that made her put a "really me" hand over her heart like a prom wallflower who has finally been asked to dance. They danced close. She pressed her cheek to his chest, and he held her hand in her waist. She breathed in deeply, but he had no smell to him. Or maybe for one delirious second he did have a smell, something faintly sour like a fridge crisper drawer, filmed with brown rot where an apple has slowly expired into slime. Rachel, she shrunk back a little. His breath was cold in her ear. There might be a window open somewhere. Rachel, I'd like to kiss you. She leaned back to look up at him. His face was serious, his eyes still cool gray, but also somehow warming up. She thought of electric stovetops, going from black to red with convection. Up close in the strobe light, his lips were slightly blue. "Okay," she said, and began to close her eyes. "No," she opened them. His face was pale and serious. "You need to say, 'I want you to kiss me.'" "You can kiss me," he squeezed her shoulder. "No, like I said it." His eyes bored into her. His hands felt sharp on her shoulder. She thought of all the bones beneath his skin, all the interlocking clicks of the mechanized phalanges. "I want you to kiss me." While he kissed her, the record skipped and the room went quiet. With her eyes closed, she didn't see everyone else stop dancing, and the fog began to condense and gather like dew on everyone's clothes, dew that quickly froze. Someone put on a new record. She could hear the click before it started. 1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, rock. 5, 6, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock rock. A song her dad liked. A memory of driving on a country road, coming back from somewhere in the late afternoon, when the sun was rich as egg yolk and dripping off everything. And he'd sung along to the radio in that chirpy, funny voice he uses for sarcasm, but it slipped occasionally on the chorus. It slipped into a bright and clean nostalgia. We're going to rock around the clock tonight. I'm not singing anymore. And he looked like a boy, briefly. She'd had the insane thought, should he even be driving? He took his hands off the wheel to shake them and danced, and he'd reached over and taken her hand, and behind his cold-pressed lips, Rachel felt a growing pressure she didn't want to let in. She expected, somehow, not a tongue, but an ice cube. It was Hannah Rosen who first noticed Rachel's abandoned handbag and her dead phone lying next to the bathroom door. They were leaving the loft party, which everyone agreed was fun, but maybe not worth all the effort. The scene was already expiring when they got there. Secret parties like this were kind of retro, from an age when city authorities cared more about who was up and out all night, what kids were having too much fun.